Hey, good morning. I'm Patricia Murphy. It's Monday. This is Seattle Now. More than 25 years ago, a harrowing series of events took place at Seattle's Garfield High School. It involved a teacher, rumors of abuse, and the students who pressed for the truth. That's the subject of KUOW's new narrative podcast, Adults in the Room. In a minute, we'll talk with host Isolde Raftery. But first, let's get you caught up. Friday's joint U.S. and Israeli strikes on Iran drew reactions from Washington residents and politicians this weekend. Hundreds of people rallied against the strikes in downtown Seattle. King 5 reports hundreds others rallied from cars in support of the action, waving flags along I-5 and I-405 on Saturday. Eastern Washington Congressman Michael Baumgartner expressed support for the action Sunday, calling Iran's nuclear and ballistic missile program significant threats to America's national interests and security. Washington Senator Patty Murray released a statement Sunday calling for Congress to, quote, return immediately and put an end to this war. Renters, do you have strong opinions on housing policies? The city of Seattle is hoping to fill 3 vacancies on its Renters Commission with a diverse group of applicants. The deadline to apply is 5 o'clock tonight. The commission helps advise the city on policies and issues that affect renters. And King County has opened applications for low-interest loans for people affected by December's historic flooding. Renters and homeowners can apply for as much as $100,000 to replace property that was damaged, including cars. Homeowners can apply for up to $500,000 to repair or replace their residence. Small businesses are eligible as well. The funding comes from the U.S. Small Business Administration. We're back with more headlines on tonight's episode of Seattle Now. In 1999, at Seattle's Garfield High School, 2 seniors heard a rumor that a popular teacher had abused a student. They told authorities what they heard. Then, their friends, parents, teachers, even a local newspaper columnist called them gossips. But the rumors they heard ended up being true. Today, we're talking about this story with one of those teen girls, KUOW's managing editor, Isolde Raftery. She's the host of the new 7-part narrative podcast from KUOW called Adults in the Room. Episode 2 is out tomorrow. And heads up to listeners, this conversation will include a discussion of abuse and suicide. Isolde, thanks so much for coming in. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Trish.
So the teacher at the center of this story is Tom Hudson. Who was he?
Tom Hudson was a biology and ecology teacher at Garfield High School, and he was a giant of a man. He was 6'3", loved to say that he weighed 1/8 of a ton, which is roughly 300 pounds, just a big guy with a thundering voice. And Mr. Hudson ran Post 84. It was affiliated with the Boy Scouts. It ran scuba diving training, wilderness survival skills, snow camping. It was a wildly popular program that I'd say brought on, hundreds of kids a year. And these trips were also a way for Mr. Hudson to be alone with students. He was often the only adult with these students. He shared tents with other students, and that resulted in an opportunity for abuse.
You started hearing rumors about Mr. Hudson. What were they?
Early days, I had heard he was a loose kind of teacher. So I knew that he had taken a nap with a boy in the back of his truck. I knew that he liked to take showers naked with students. I knew that he skinny dipped with students. I knew that he had pornography that he would give to students and then request that they look at the porn with him. These were all things I knew, and that as students we kind of normalized, found it strange, kept our distance. When the tipping point happened, when my best friend Ella Hushagen and I decided to actually say, wait a minute, maybe we need to report this to authorities, was when we learned that this was no longer horseplay. He was doing this all in service of his, for sexual reasons, for his darker impulses. So I knew that he had kicked a child very aggressively in the back. I knew that he had been slapping boys in the butt in the shower. I knew he was aroused in the shower. He would do a thing where he would take a quarter and slide the quarter between the boys' butt cheeks in the shower. He would slap boys. So all of this was just like, this is weird. This is off. My best friend believes that she heard about sexual touching. It suddenly went from, oh, this guy has poor judgment to, actually, I think this tipped over into abuse.
What happens after that?
My best friend Ella went to our journalism advisor, who decided not to report it. I, meanwhile, heard about it from her. She was another editor on the student newspaper. She heard about this from a reporter. She told me, and I told my parents, and we decided to report it. My mom went to the school district and made a report to the school district. She may have gone to the police. Again, we don't remember. Memory's funky with all of this, but we decided to go forth with reporting it, and an investigation was launched.
How are you thinking about making that report? Because that was certainly a big decision.
My parents and I sat down at the table. I told them everything I knew. And I said, we have to do something, right? And my dad said, if you do, you might destroy this man's legacy, his life. And we don't know for certain that these allegations are true. You've heard these third hand. Do you really want to go forth with this? Because if you do, your life will be separated in two. The time before you reported and the time after. And that seemed very dramatic to me. My dad is not a dramatic man, and it struck me as very dramatic. I could not imagine knowing what I knew and deciding that my own comfort trumped kids being abused and continuing to be abused. I couldn't live with myself. So of course I went forward. I mean, there was just no question in my mind.
Once you had decided that this was predatory.
Then everything else has been after that decision.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about that, because authorities were notified, wheels were set in motion.
Exactly.
What happened?
Mr. Hudson was put on administrative leave. That was November 29th. An investigator was sent to Garfield High School. He began interviewing students. He was interviewing me all the time. And at some point, I exhausted what I knew, but he kept kind of running things by me and saying, like, did you know this? Did you know that? And students were sharing about the porn on the boat, the butt slaps, the inappropriate behavior. And then at some point, there's almost like a light switch. They stopped talking to him. We have records of faxes coming in with parents saying, stop talking to my kid. You don't have permission to talk to my kid, which is fair. Like, I get it. As a parent, you kind of maybe want to be there. But what we see is a real snuffing out of the investigation. And then about a month goes by and Mr. Hudson dies by suicide.
What had he been doing during this time?
During this time, he'd been living on his boat. Students were going to his boat. Parents of the students were going to his boat, bringing him food, consoling him. Lots and lots and lots of phone calls with students, drives with students to be comforted and be consoled.
I just want to make sure that we're clear here that after you reported this abuse, it looks like people supported Tom Hudson.
There was an unbelievable circling of the wagons. And not only that, I would say that my best friend Ella and I really were retaliated against. For the most part, senior year went on as it should. We were kids in high school thinking about prom and dating and all those things. But we could feel our own teachers really become cold toward us. We had one teacher invite us over to tea, and we loved this teacher. We were excited to catch up with her, and she told us that we had done the wrong thing. Another teacher randomly lost my exam on an exam, and then I said, okay, well, what do I do? You lost it. Do I retake it? And I thought, simple mistake, no big deal. And I retook the exam, and I aced it, and he gave me a C, combining an F for the missing test and an A for the test I aced, and it knocked my grade down. I was on track to being valedictorian. Now, at Garfield, that's not that special because there are a lot of valedictorians. I just want to be clear. but it was special enough. And a columnist at the Seattle Times wrote a piece saying that the allegations were partly to blame for Tom Hudson's death. All of that was a real slap in the face. I really felt like I had done what was the right thing and what you're supposed to do as a child. You hear about abuse, you tell other grown-ups, end of story. And instead it felt like the world turned on me. It felt like my own city turned on me. And, you know, the columnist really took whispers. All of those were whispers and glares and a missing test and put them in ink.
What happened to the investigation after Tom Hudson's suicide?
It ended. They stopped investigating. And it was the superintendent of public schools said he can't defend himself, so we won't let the investigation continue.
Just so we're clear, Tom Hudson dies by suicide, and you and your best friend Ella are still holding the emotional bag for what happened.
It certainly felt that way. I mean, I think one of the things I've learned in making this podcast is everybody was. It wasn't just about us. I think, you know, teenagers tend to be the star of their own movies. And Ella and I definitely felt like we were at the center of this thing. But the truth is there were a lot of grieving kids, a lot of kids who felt responsible, a lot of kids who felt like if only they tried harder, Mr. Hudson would still be alive. So yeah, it was certainly not just us at all. It turns out we have learned in the making of the podcast.
After all this time, why did you do this podcast? Why tell this story now?
So I didn't actually really want to do the podcast, but Ella, my best friend, convinced me because she said, let's find out what really happened and let's see, were we right to put forward these allegations? And we joked that the podcast should be called We Were Right. And then we started interviewing people and we realized the very people we kind of wanted to convince, or in our heads, I think, wanted to convince, you know, these amorphous people, many of them were victims. And as we moved forward, we realized there was this whole world in which a lot of people were victimized, maybe not sexual abuse victimization, but, you know, they witnessed stuff or they were put in very dangerous, precarious situations. And so that's what it kind of became. It became less about us needing to be right and vindicated, which was a real narcissistic approach, I think. And then it moved into, wait a minute, we need to tell the story of how did this even happen? And that is where we got records and loads of interviews. And we realized, like, okay, this is a system-wide, citywide, statewide problem that allowed this to happen. So that's where the podcast has gone.
Now that you know the truth about what really happened, how does it make you feel today to know you weren't at fault for causing this man's death and that you aren't the things that other students said you were?
To be perfectly honest, right now, as I get reactions and responses, I feel like I'm back in high school. I feel like I just poked the bear again. I know a lot of my classmates are hurting and reeling right now, and that is painful. I feel like, was it worth it? Should I have done this again? It's a really great story to tell. And so what I tell myself, which is what I told myself back then, is that people are going to feel their feelings. And hopefully Seattle Public Schools will change their policies, which, by the way, they haven't even returned my phone calls. So, you know, like, it just goes to show how the accountability is really lacking. And so my hope is there's accountability. And if this podcast results in one less child being abused down the road because of more awareness around this issue, then success. But how I feel right now today as I sit in front of you, I feel like I'm 18 again. And I think a lot of my classmates feel like we're all back in this like weird place again.
Isolde Raftery is KUOW's managing editor and the host of the new narrative podcast, Adults in the Room. Episode 2 is out tomorrow. Isolde, again, thanks so much.
Thanks, Trish.
Appreciate you listening to Seattle Now, and thanks to our generous donors for your financial support. Take a minute today to rate and review the show on your favorite podcast app. Today's episode was produced by Andy Hurst. It was edited by Caroline Chamberlain Gomez. Our production team also includes Vaughn Jones, Brooklyn Jamerson Flowers, and Paige Browning. Greg Kramer does our theme music. Seattle Now and KUOW Public Radio are members of the NPR network. I'm Patricia Murphy. We're back tonight with Evening Headlines.